Vegetable scraps make up a large portion of everyday household rubbish. According to councils, vegetable scraps and green waste shouldn't be placed in the normal rubbish bins as it decomposes anaerobically and at a different rate to normal rubbish that goes in the bin. This means that the green waste takes up a large percentage of landfill sites. This affects both the environment and climate change. In order to reduce the amount of household waste added to landfill, an innovative compost solution has been provided. This will allow the everyday household and consumer to place all of their vegetable scraps, garden scraps, and other green waste materials directly into a 100% recycled compost bin in their own backyard. It's low maintenance and improves the soil in the backyard, whilst also helping the environment and reducing household waste. This new idea to reduce household waste is formed from a council perspective. Currently, approximately 50% of all rubbish placed in bins by Australian households could be put to better use in the garden. This waste can be composted at home to improve soil quality, as well as reducing the effect it has on landfill and on the environment. Additionally, households make up 16.3% of total waste, which relates to 12.4 million tonnes. Within this, organic waste contributes 20% of total waste, and households were found to be the largest contributor to organic waste. Organic waste has also increased by 10% since 2016-17, which results in a larger amount of household waste. Whilst food waste can only be reduced so far with the correct labels, smaller portion sizes, and longer use-by dates, food can be transformed to serve many other purposes that help the environment. The main ones can be fertiliser, energy, pharmaceuticals, and building materials.
The integrative thinking model is a model designed to integrate the benefits of two opposing models to create one solution that is more beneficial to the complex problem. By following the integrative thinking model, we're able to come up with a solution that aims to reduce household waste. And by following the model, we're able to test our solution in the final stage. And thus we'll be able to truly understand if our proposed solution will work at reducing household waste. This is suitable to develop a solution to our current problem, as there are two models that have been identified. And as members of the council, we want to come up with a solution that appeals to all members of the council.
In Australia, there are two conversing households, one of whom would utilise a small green rubbish bin provided by the council to compost green food waste, while the other place their green food scraps in the standard rubbish bin. This offers limited choice to people that are interested in reducing their green waste, which has led to more wastage and a large environmental footprint. How might we rectify the situation and reduce household waste and increase composting to reduce the negative environmental effects? A fresh, innovative idea needs to be created that borders between the current existing models. The first model discussed a household that does not use a compost bin and places all scraps directly into a general rubbish bin. The second model looks at a household that are taking steps towards reducing household waste by using a council-provided green waste starter kit that has a small caddy bin and compost bags for vegetable scraps.
In Model 1, the model's main idea would be to use the general purpose bins for vegetable waste. Some possible positives to come out of this model would be the ease of use, as it would require a reduced amount of effort to put green food waste with the rest of the household's rubbish. The implications of this model would be having a large effect on the well-being of our environment from disposal emissions, as well as an increased strain on our rubbish or recycling systems, which in turn will increase the cost of maintaining our wastage systems.
The opposing model was where we use a rubbish bin dedicated for composting, is one of those which is supposed to have a more environmentally friendly approach. However, would require additional work and commitment. Another factor we must consider is that supplying composting bins does not necessarily mean that all people will use it, which may lead to the bin being neglected. However, with education, the bin may also be a success. The composting caddies may also smell bad and take up more space than desired, which can be viewed as an inconvenience. An advantage of the bins is having place for all the vegetables and scraps in order to be composted to ensure that the food is going back to the environment instead of being pulverized. The new composting disposal will also create new jobs and improve the economy as well as the environment. However, the environment impacts are not all positive, as if not managed correctly, the composting process can also lead to the emission of gases such as nitrous oxide, which can cause air pollution and damage to the ozone layer.
This slide and the diagram below demonstrates what's involved in the two opposing models.
This first stage of the integrative thinking process links to the next stage of the model by providing a base of two opposing models to begin with. The most important considerations during this stage of the process are viewing the current climate of society and whether the innovatives made by the council are showing any positive or negative trends. As the diagram demonstrates, the council model hasn't been very effective in reducing the amount of household waste. Therefore, a new innovative idea must be formed which can convince households to use a bin, as well as limit the amount of additional commitment and workload that the average amount of household rubbish removed from a household is 400 kilograms, and with 180 kilograms of that being recyclable food or green waste. If this process is followed, household waste will continue to increase as people eat more and the population grows. By removing the food scraps from the bins and placing them in your own compost pile in the garden, it will almost halve the average amount of household waste from every household. Imagine the difference this will make to the amount of meals every year in Australia. This leads us to the question of what can councils do to reduce the amount of food waste that is thrown in normal bins? Is there an innovative solution that they can come up with that is better than the current models in place?
In stage 2 of the thinking model, we have to examine the models in which we identify features of both positive and negative to add and avoid from our model we are designing. Factors that can be taken from model 1 is the ease and convenience. Consumers are more likely to follow this model as it requires minimal effort and can fit in with their daily schedule. If a model is too hard, consumers are more likely to ignore the model and will continue to put green scraps in the normal bin, which contributes to landfill. Factors that can be taken from model 2 is the amount of people and households that are willing to look at alternatives for their food scraps. The model needs to be easy and convenient for consumers, whilst also being quick and good for the environment. The negative about this model is that it takes up space in the kitchen and can smell if not emptied fast enough. Single-person households will take longer to empty theirs as they have less food scraps compared to the average family of 5 people. The difference between the two models that are in existence is that in the first one, people take no notice of where their food scraps go, and food scraps that are placed in the general rubbish bin. On the other hand, in the second model, provides a small caddy bin with compostable bags for households to use, but can be annoying and inconvenient. These models leave a big gap in the middle for everyone that is not included in the limited area where the green waste starter kits are in place for those households that are uninterested in reducing their average household waste. If people are given an option that will reduce their household waste and doesn't take up too much time for them, it will likely be a popular choice.
Valuable aspects that must be conveyed into a new model include convenience and ensuring households use a system in order to compost their food scraps so that overall household waste can be reduced. In order to create a draw both existing models, it needs to be made as easy as possible for the households. This can be achieved from drawing on ease and convenience, but can also by having a small bin inside the house that is filled with food scraps. This can then be emptied into a larger compost bin. This then has the ability to convert and into usable compost. Some benefits are taken from each of the existing models in order to create a third model that suits consumers better and is better for the environment while reducing the amount of household waste from every house.
Based on the existing models and the pros and cons of each, it helps to determine which aspects need to be carried over to the new model. As discussed above, convenience is key. Consumers will do whatever is easiest for them, and a minority will do what is best for the environment. Different combinations of ideas that can be looked at include households buy their own compost bin for their choice to compost food scraps. Complete freedom of choice for the consumer is provided in this model. Also, another option is households have a small rectangular garden bed with a compost pod in the middle. It has holes in the pod on the side and the bottom so worms can freely pass through to fertilise the soil and compost all vegetable scraps. This enables new vegetables to be planted around the pod and households can have their own veggie gardens. Whilst another option is councils provide households with 100% recycled compost bin that comes with a starter kit of soil and worms. It is small enough so that it doesn't take up too much room and can be fitted on the side of the house. This was formed using the understand the logic table. as we came up with 3 potential ideas of how the model could be run, as this allows us to design 3 potential models that we can use to explore different ways to reduce household waste. This also allows us to examine different features of 3 models, which we can use to assess the effectiveness of those features in stage 4. When we assess the models we have designed and articulated.
Based on the 3 options above, one of these can be implemented to create the ideal solution. The ideal solution would be to create a 100% recycled box with holes to allow worm access. It would have holes in the sides and bottom so that it can be planted in a small garden bed and fertilize the soil. The fertilized soil can then be taken out and spread over the garden, and thus makes room for new soil to be placed in and new food scraps to. This prototype would work well as a box can be provided by councils from recycled materials, which would reduce the initial cost and help households gain accessibility to the refined model. The involvement of the council may also expose new families to environmentally friendly designs and methods to provide the chance to explain how the design functions. Households with a small vegetable box, as shown above, or in the garden. This will enable a time-effective and convenient process for households to follow, as they can dump their food scraps into the bin provider without requiring further effort or monitoring. This reduces household waste as scraps are placed into the garden rather than the wastage bin. The little bin inside the house can be empty as a tool, which will reduce any chance of having a bad smell in the kitchen. Furthermore, strong odors associated with pre-packaged soil would be reduced with the new recycled system. It also means that households won't need to purchase compostable bags, as it can be tipped right into the box and start working.
Using the design test template, if money was a limitation when designing the test, we will only select a few households to run the test, and we will make sure that it ranges from households that are keen to reduce their waste, as well as households that have little or no interest in reducing their household waste. If money was not a limitation, we'll be able to get expressions of interest to see who would want to participate in the trial. This way, we'll be able to identify how many participants initially want to be involved, which also allows us to predict how many members will be supportive of the solution when the tests are completed. If time and money was not a limitation, we will conduct a trial lasting a year in which we conduct a baseline test for a current household and how they will treat waste and how they have in the past. And then conduct a 6-month trial in which they use a new model to reduce the household waste. Then we are able to understand how effectively proposed the model is at reducing household waste. By testing the models, we are able to understand how effective these proposed models are at reducing their household waste, as we do not want to introduce a model which has not been tested previously and does not effectively reduce the household waste. Thus, by using the integrative thinking model, we are able to design an optimal solution and test the solution to make sure it solves our problem.
The solution to reducing household waste in this instance would be for councils to provide homes with a 100% recycled box that's comprised of a secure lid that prevents pests from entering and sides with small holes just big enough for worms to make their way through. This is then planted in the ground or in a vegetable patch, and all vegetable scraps from the kitchen can be placed directly into the box. This creates an efficient way to reduce the average 180 kilos of food waste that's thrown into the bin every year. This will nearly halve the amount of waste from households that go into landfill. It'll also be a more optimal solution for the environment and can help to reduce climate change. Ways that the council can ensure that this is implemented in households is to educate consumers on the benefits of composting vegetables and how much it helps the environment. The council can also reinforce and utilise the cameras that are in garbage trucks and monitor which households are still using their bins for food scraps. If the council finds there are households that are repetitively using their bins for the wrong items, then they could potentially look at increased rates paid by those households, implementing harsher penalties or fines, or refusing to collect bins from those households. This will mean people will become more responsible for what they are placing in their bins. This solution is critical and, if implemented, will massively reduce the amount of household waste.
This solution has taken aspects from both of the previously existing models in order to create one innovative solution to help consumers compost their food scraps and reduce their household waste. This solution will take investment from the council to either make these bins or source them from a supplier. It will include infrastructure that needs to be implemented in order to deliver the bins to each household, as well as creating informative brochures and TV commercials for why they are so important. This is a significant investment, but if the average household waste per year can be nearly halved, the country will dramatically reduce the landfill for the future. In order to operationalise, the council will also test this method on a couple of different areas to determine the effectiveness before they roll it out completely. This will allow households to recommend any changes, and the council will be able to determine what parts of this innovative solution are working and what parts aren't. Statistics also indicate that the Australian population will double over the next 40 years. This means more food will be eaten and produced, and there'll be much more going into landfills. If this solution can be implemented now, it can be improved over the next 4 years in order to maintain lower levels of rubbish that can't go into landfills.
Overall, the innovative solution of the compost bin that can be placed in the ground or in a vegetable garden, an effective and time-efficient way of reducing household waste by nearly 50% and results in a much better outcome for the environment.